Today's lesson is called History and Legends in Brno. Hello everyone, my name is Jeff.
I am Roger, and today we're going to be traveling overseas. It's a great time to go to Europe right now. It's in the dead of winter. It's really, really cold there right now. But we're from Taiwan here. It's a nice warm country. So we'd like to go someplace different that is cold, and it's a place that has lots of culture, just like Taiwan, but it's a different kind of culture. We're actually going to not Prague, and well, we are going to the Czech Republic, but we're not going to Prague. If we don't go to Prague in the Czech Republic, where the heck do we go?
I guess we go to Brno. B-R-N-O. I hope I'm saying that properly. Very often you won't see three consonants strung together like this, but some Eastern European languages, they do this. Sometimes you'll see many consonants strung together without vowels in between, so we will do our best. Yes, Brno. That's the city that we're talking about today and tomorrow. It's the second largest city there in the Czech Republic after Prague. Now, does that mean it's not as good as Prague? Absolutely not. There's plenty to see and do in this particular place, so let's not waste another moment. Let's go ahead and take a short break, and when we come back, we'll begin learning everything there is to know about Brno.
History and legends in Brno. Although not as famous as Prague, the Czech Republic's second largest city, Brno, is full of charm. And with 1,000 years of history, it's also a treasure trove of old architecture and legends.
大家好，第一部分我们看到片语 a treasure trove of something 表示点点点的宝库，拥有丰富的点点点。举例来说 The library provided a treasure trove of information 图书馆提供了珍贵的资讯宝藏。
Okay, let's begin our discussion about the town of Brno in the Czech Republic. Of course, lots of times when we travel to foreign countries, we head straight for the biggest city. Like in Thailand, of course, most people head straight to Bangkok. But then some people think, well, I've seen enough of Bangkok. I'd like to go someplace different. So in Thailand, a lot of people head up to Chiang Mai. But if you're in the Czech Republic and you're looking for an alternative to Prague, then you might head to this smaller city called Brno. And we're talking about the history and legends in this smaller city in the Czech Republic. If we're talking about legends, I think we're talking about old stories or famous people that have died, but they're still famous now for something they have done in the past.
There you go. A famous story that people still tell that's related to a place or to a person, or a hero from the past who did something so amazing and so great that you call them a legend, and they're still famous even though they are long dead. Like Elvis Presley is a rock and roll legend. Anyways, let's go ahead and start reading. Although not as famous as Prague, the Czech Republic's second largest city, Brno, is full of charm, and yes, that charm has been accumulating for a long time. The history of Brno goes back a long ways. It goes back thousands of years. Get this, the next sentence says, and with 1,000 years of history, it's also a treasure trove of old architecture and legends. So yes, over the years, Brno has been accumulating these amazing things, old architecture, pieces of architecture that are beautiful to behold, and also those legends as well. Yes, it's built up a treasure trove.
Yeah, the word trove just means a collection of valuable things or really culturally significant things. Like there is a trove of ancient Chinese artworks at the National National Palace Museum here in Taiwan. But this word trove here is often used together with the word treasure. A treasure trove, just a place with lots of treasure, lots of wonderful things to look at and check out. And yes, you've got this treasure trove of old architecture and, of course, the legends, the old stories from the past or stories about famous people and stuff like that. Yeah, if you're really into old buildings made with old architecture or old styles, then this sounds like a pretty cool city to check out.
There you go. You might check out some beautiful old buildings and also hear the stories behind them as well. Let's say the stories behind them or stories about things that transpired within them or around them. Wow, this place, Brno, is really capturing my imagination. It's a shame I can't travel there quite yet, but one day I will. For now, I'll just do so in my imagination. Anyways, folks, with that, it's time for us to take a short break, but don't go away. We'll be right back after this.
One of Brno's most popular tourist destinations is the medieval Spilberg Castle. Impressive both for its history and as a modern tourist attraction. For centuries, it served as a military fortress before becoming one of Europe's harshest jails. It was transformed into an army barracks in the 19th century and back into a jail during the World Wars. Today, the castle houses the Brno City Museum and provides a wonderful vantage point for panoramic views of the city.
第二部分我们看到单字 medieval， 这字也可以念成 medieval， 这个字是形容词，意思是中世纪的，像是 A medieval castle still stands on a hill at the center of the city。 有一座中世纪城堡耸立在该市中央的山丘上。接着我们看到名词 fortress， 指要塞、堡垒。例如 Would you like to take a tour of the old fortress？ 你想要参观旧堡垒吗？另外，这个字去掉字尾 ress， 就成了同义词 fort。举例来说 ，The soldiers built a fort to keep enemies out。士兵们建立了一个堡垒来防止敌人入侵。再来，我们看到单字 harsh， 这个字是形容词，指残酷无情的、严厉的。像是 Monica said some harsh words to me, but later she apologized。Monica 对我说了一些恶毒的话，但后来她道歉了。或是John's teacher gave him a harsh punishment after he was rude to her. John 对老师不礼貌，老师便对他严厉惩罚。另外，这个字的字尾加上 ness， 就成了名词 harshness， 指天气、环境恶劣、粗糙。例如 The harshness of the weather makes growing crops difficult in the region. 该地区恶劣的天气使农作物难以成长。以下再补充 harsh 这个字的其他用法。第一，指严酷的、恶劣的。举例来说 Some say that the desert is a harsh place, but I think it is beautiful. 有些人说沙漠是个严酷的地方，但我觉得它很美。或是 It's difficult to imagine the harsh conditions of life in this poor country. 很难想象在这个贫穷国家的恶劣生活环境。第二，指刺眼的、刺耳的。我们可以说 The teacher's loud, harsh voice scared his students. 那名老师刺耳又大声的音量吓到他的学生们。接下来我们看到名词 barrack， 指兵营、营房。这个字常用复数形，像是 We found barracks in the mountain when we went hiking. 我们去爬山时发现山中有兵营。最后我们看到单字 panoramic， 这个字是形容词，意思是全景的。举例来说 The painting was a panoramic view of the valley. 那幅画是山谷全景图。
Okay, so you're in Brno now, and we've told you about the old architecture and the legends there, but what exactly are these old legends, and what is this old architecture? Well, one of Brno's most popular tourist destinations is the medieval Spilberg Castle. And it's impressive both for its history and as a modern tourist attraction. So yes, here we got the word medieval. Some people say medieval. They stick another consonant there in the middle there. I've always said medieval myself, 3 syllables. But this particular castle is from that period of time, the Middle Ages, the Spellberg Castle. And that, of course, is a destination, a place you're heading to go check out.
There you go. This castle, it's got a cool history. Not only was it important in the past, but it's also still important now as a modern tourist attraction. How interesting. Anyways, though, we have more about the history of this particular castle in the coming sentences, so let's read on.
Indeed, let's read on. Here's the next sentence. It says, for centuries, for hundreds of years, it served as a military fortress before becoming one of Europe's harshest jails. Ooh, that does not sound good there. Of course, here we've got a military fortress. A fortress is also referred to as a fort. It's like a military installation. It's got high walls, and then you've got soldiers on the inside, and you've got cannons and weapons and spears and clubs and knives and all sorts of fun stuff.
Anyways, so this was a military fortress or fort before becoming a jail. And was this a good jail to go to? No. Okay, apparently this was one of Europe's harshest jails. Maybe they didn't feed you well there. Maybe they didn't give you enough clothing there to stay warm. Who knows? Maybe they made you do manual labor around the clock. Maybe they even tortured you one way or another. If you went to jail there, they were not going to be nice to you at all. This was one of the harshest jails in all of Europe.
Yep, harsh, that's an adjective. It just means it's kind of rough. It's very unpleasant. Like the first time I tried to drink Scotch whiskey, I went, ugh, this stuff is really harsh compared to bourbon whiskey. Bourbon is a little smoother, and Scotch whiskey is a little harsher. I'm not telling you all to go out and start drinking whiskey, but that's just an example here. And in this particular case, though, if the jail is harsh, it's going to be kind of extreme, okay? It's not going to be a pleasant place for the prisoners. They're going to be beaten, whipped. They're going to be put in small cells. They aren't going to be given good food. There's going to be rats in there and spider webs and stuff like that. It's a place you're just not going to want to go to.
Anyways, this particular place, it was transformed into an army barracks in the 19th century and then back into a jail during the World War. So back and forth it went. Fortress, jail, barracks, jail, back and forth. Now, let's go ahead and talk about a few words to be had here. First of all, if you transform something, you change that thing from one thing into another. Usually, it's a dramatic change, like changing a jail into an army barracks. Like an army barracks needs to be livable for the most part, whereas a jail doesn't necessarily have to be all that livable for the inmates, but I digress. Now, we also have this word barracks to talk about. An army barracks, that is a building, a structure where the soldiers live.
Yeah, so back to this word transform, I can give you an example. In the past, I knew a girl by the name of Jane. She was kind of fat and she wasn't very attractive, but she transformed into a beautiful girl. She lost weight, she started wearing contact lenses, and she had a hairstyle, so she actually was able to transform from a plain Jane into a beauty queen. And in this particular case, this structure, the castle, was transformed into an army barracks. I guess they needed a place for the soldiers to sleep. That happened way back in the 19th century, and then it was converted back into a jail during the World Wars. Of course, World War I and World War II. So yeah, it has served many purposes.
Now today, the castle houses the Brno City Museum and provides a wonderful vantage point for panoramic views of the city. So, is it a fortress now? No. Is it a barracks now? No. Is it one of the harshest jails in all of Europe now? No, it's a museum. Okay, this particular structure has been converted into a museum. And from this particular place, this museum, you can get a great panoramic view of the city. You can get a view of that city that is pretty much 360 degrees. You can see all around you and the city from that particular place.
Yeah, you can get a panoramic view of Taipei from the top of Taipei 101. So, yeah, head up there on a clear day. And, yeah, check out this castle. Of course, it's going to be on top of a hill. So, if you go there, you can have a good vantage point, which means a good place that is advantageous. It is an advantage to be there at that point because you can see all of the city. If it's a fort, of course, you can keep your eyes on the enemy and make sure that they don't attack you. So, yes, indeed, it houses the museum there. House there, of course, is being used as a verb, so you have to say house. We could say that this building houses 200 people. But, yeah, this is a cool museum to check out. If you like those panoramic views, this is the place for you. Okay, that brings us to the end of the second part of our lesson. Let's begin the third part right now.
Another must-see is the Cathedral of St. Peter and Paul. It's known for its tall spires, Baroque interior, and the interesting legend attached to its bells. During the 30 Years' War, the Swedish army promised to stop attacking Brno if it couldn't take the city by noon. So, clever locals rang the church bells an hour early to fool the Swedes and save their town. That's why the cathedral's bells ring at 11 o'clock instead of noon to this day.
Okay, back to our article. Another must-see is the Cathedral of St. Peter and Paul. It's known for its tall spires, Baroque interior, and the interesting legend attached to its bells. And here's another legend. People are still talking about these legends to be found in Brno. Before we learn anything else, let's talk about two vocabulary words. First of all, we have the word cathedral. Usually, a cathedral is a big, fancy church. If you're a Catholic, the cathedral is that big, fancy church where the bishop works for the most part. Further, we also have the word interior. When we're talking about the interior of something, we're talking about the inside of something. The opposite of that would be the exterior.
That's right. Okay, so this is a cool church or cathedral to check out. And, of course, it does have an interesting legend associated with or attached to its bells. Okay, there's a story that goes along with the bells. And here's that story. It says, during the 30 Years' War, the Swedish army promised to stop attacking Brno if it couldn't take the city by noon. Okay, that's what the Swedes promised after they finished a meal of their meatballs and stuff like that. They said, hey, we're real civilized people here. If we can't take that city by noon, we'll stop attacking Brno. So you've got our promise from that. So, of course, the clever local people rang the church bells an hour early to fool the Swedes and save their town. Okay, the Swedes back in those days probably did not carry pocket watches or wrist watches, and they weren't very smart at that time. So, of course, when the bells rang, they bought it. They believed it was really noon when it was actually 11 o'clock. They were really silly, weren't they?
And that's why the cathedral's bells ring at 11 o'clock instead of noon to this day, to this very day. How about that? Well done there. Fooling the Swedes. We'll just ring the bells an hour early and save the city. How clever. All right, folks, with that, today's lesson is now in the books, and it's time for you guys to hear from the Chinese teacher.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。课文第二部分介绍了布尔诺其中一个受欢迎的旅游景点，那就是斯皮尔伯城堡。它本来是一个军事要塞，在19世纪的时候它被改造成军队营房。 那么在世界大战期间又变回了监牢。好，课文是用到一个单字 transform 来表达改变、改造或是转换的意思。我们来学它的字首字根。先来看 form 这个字根呢，它有形式、形状、塑形或是使什么成型的意思。那么在 transform 这个字当中，它的字首 trans trans 表示穿越、转变。那么 form 是形状、形式，合在一起 transform 它就有变形啊、转变或是改变、改造的意思咯。顺便补充几个有相同字根的单字。第一个是 uniform， 好，它的字首 uni 这表示单一，那么 form 是形状，而 uniform 当形容词就可以用来形容是一致的，或者是形容不变的，那它当名词就表示制服咯。好，第二个补充的是 perform， 好，它的字首 per 有完全的意思， form 是形状。那同学们试着想，当我们把某事物的形状样貌完全的呈现出来，完全表现出来，应该就可以联想到 perform 它有执行、履行、完成，或者是也可以表达表演、演出的意思。第三个补充的是 conform， 好，它的字首 con 有共同的意思，那么 form 是形式。当每个人做事情都是依照相同共同的形式，按照共同的规范，应该可以联想到 conform 它有遵守、配合或是符合的意思。好，那么课文下一句写到说 Today, the castle houses the Brno City Museum and provides a wonderful vantage point for panoramic views of the city. 好，句子里面的 house 在这边是当动词来表达为什么什么来提供空间住处，也可以表达把什么收藏在室内啊，或者是有那种安置容纳的意思。像我们可以说 The paintings are now housed in the British Museum， 就是说现在啊那些画作被收藏在大英博物馆里面。好，那么至于 vantage point，它是指观察考量的位置或是角度，可以用来表达它是有利或者是具有优势的位置或角度，也可以表达观点或看法。那么 from the vantage point of 什么什么就可以表达从什么什么的观点来看。那我们来造两个例句哦。This place is a great vantage point to see the whole city。这个地方呢是可以观看整座城市的绝佳地点。还有 The story is narrated from the vantage point of a Holocaust survivor。 那个故事是从一位大屠杀幸存者的观点来叙述的。好，那么以上是今天重点整理，我们回顾今天的单字吧。
Legend. According to the legend, the Loch Ness Monster lives in this lake. Destination.Spain is one of Europe's most popular holiday destinations. Harsh. People protested against the harsh new laws brought in by the government. Transform. The old castle has been transformed into a luxury hotel. Cathedral. The famous Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris was damaged by fire. Interior. A company was hired to redesign the interior of the
shop.Well, everyone, today's article has come to an end, and I sure hope you guys enjoyed reading and learning along with us. I am Jeff.
I am Roger.
See you next time.